everybody, and welcome into today's episode of On the Slide. I know it's been a while since I've been on here with this podcast. It's been about a month or so, give or take. Two reasons for that. One, obviously, with the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and all that stuff, fun stuff, got busy. And two, I was thinking ways of how to improve the podcast in terms of like video quality, higher quality editing. So if you notice that rolling out with this episode and near future episodes, get ready for that. And also, I wanted to plan new and innovative content for the year of 2025. So obviously, this podcast will be picking right back up where we left off. And also, I want to bring back the Around the Slice Fantasy Football Show on this podcast feed. So look out for that within the next 2 weeks or so, especially ramping up with NFL free agency, how certain skill players, running backs, wide receivers, QBs affect the fantasy landscape and fantasy football market. Huge fan of that. So get excited for that. But obviously, what we are here for today is the Bills versus Ravens official divisional round game preview. So as a reminder, if you need a refresher, since it's been about a month or so, again, give or take around there, or just weren't here before, I go through my 3 keys to the game for Bills offense and then vice versa, 3 keys to the game for the Bills defense. I give you who I think will stand out most on offense or defense, so player of the game, you could call them. And then I give you 5 underdog fantasy player props that I'm looking at. I do play underdog fantasy, but I don't ever get mixed in betting with the Bills just because I already have stress enough watching the Bills, and I don't want to mix my own team in with betting. So look out for that. And then I give you a final score prediction, and then we project any little housekeeping fun stuff, like any practice squad elevations, any inactive players, any injuries on both sides of the ball, offense and defense for Bills and Ravens specifically. So without further ado, let's just get into it. I am going to start today with the injuries. So let's start with the Bills, obviously, because that's what this show and myself concerns most. So Sean McDermott said on WGR Radio 550, this one, and great source, by the way, with Silk Bacho and them, they do an awesome job. He was saying that Ray Davis is still in the concussion protocol, and we'll see how it goes today. An official injury designation will obviously come out with the Friday injury report a couple days before the game. If I were to say right now, I'm operating under the assumption that Ray Davis unfortunately does not play because one, the hit that Brandon Jones had on him last week was dirty. I don't know how he was ejected. And two, with his physical running style and the nature he plays football with, I assume they don't want to put him in harm's way with that. And even if he is ready, he is a rookie, get him 100% for hopefully a stretch run. He is important to this team because he is the closer. He is that fourth quarter bruiser. You need 2 or 3 extra short yardage to close out the game. He's got it, so we'll miss him. But unfortunately, I'm operating under the assumption that Ray Davis does not play, sadly. And we other heard from McDermott that kick returner and / punt returner Brandon Codrington looks like he's good to go. It sounded like last week he was nearly ready to play, but just out of precaution as a UDFA rookie, just out of precaution, they wanted to keep him out. Khalil Shakir deserves one punt returns, and Ray Davis and Ty Johnson did perfect. Mostly Ty Johnson did perfectly fine in kick returns, so that's not an issue. But Brandon Codrington, welcome, sit back, and then you guys might not think this was a big deal, but let me explain. Alec Anderson with a calf injury. McDermott says he's trending in the right direction. So I'm like 95% sure that he'll play. Very tiny chance at this point that he doesn't play. And you're like, Aiden, who cares about a 6 offensive lineman? Well, the Bills care because if you don't know, the Bills use the 6 offensive linemen a ton. And the past has been Bobby Hart, Tommy Doyle, as recent last year, David Edwards. And now since David Edwards is our starting left guard and Connor McGovern is starting center, Alec Anderson is that jumbo tight end, 6 offensive lineman, insert blocker, pseudo hybrid guy, whatever you want to term it as. So his snaps keep going up and up as the season goes on. So obviously the Bills covet their goal very highly. And if he can't go, I don't know who it would be. Maybe like Cedric Van Pran Granger, something like that. I don't know, but I really like Alec Anderson in that role. So again, Ray Davis, we'll see McDermott says, but I'll bank on him just as a recap. We'll see McDermott says, but I'm operating under the assumption that he unfortunately does not play. Brandon Codrington, he's full go, good to go. Alec Anderson, 90 to 95% sure he will play as that jumbo trans 6 insert blocker role. And if he can't go, well, it will get real dicey with maybe Cedric Van Pran get injured or something like Tylen Grable, Ryan Vandemark, someone in that role. So those are the injuries, not too big on the Bills side of things. The Ravens really only have one injury, but it's a major injury. Wide receiver Zay Flowers, second-year wide receiver out of Boston College, former first-round pick. Zay Flowers did not play last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It didn't sound like he was anywhere close. He has a sprained MCL in his knee, I believe. And I know John Harbaugh said earlier in the week on Monday or Tuesday, I believe it was Tuesday, I think, doesn't matter, earlier this week, that, yeah, Zay Flowers doesn't need to practice to play necessarily, but like a second wide receiver, I would think needs to practice. And he didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, probably won't practice today from what I've heard Friday. So I'm like 95% sure that he doesn't play. I'll be really, really shocked and surprised if he somehow plays through a sprained MCL / sprained knee, sprained MCL in his knee rather. So I'm just going to operate in the assumption that he doesn't play. And I know in that first Bills-Ravens matchup in week 4 in late September / early October, whenever it was, way back then, it feels like forever ago this season now, but he only had one catch for 10 yards. But Zay Flowers makes the teams, especially the Bills in this place, play more man coverage because Zay Flowers is a burner on the outside. If you get him screens, he can take it to the house. So he makes teams at least respect his stretching the field element. And if Zay Flowers is out, they're going to run a lot more 12 personnel, a lot more 13, a lot more 21, a lot more 22. A lot of these exotic personnel groupings that the Ravens love to run. And we'll get to that deeper in the weeds, if you will, deeper. But yeah, I'd say Zay Flowers doesn't play at this point. I don't know how you do with the sprained MCL in your knee, but we will see. So my 3 keys for the Bills offense. I'm not going to get too convoluted here, but continue to utilize your excellent zone rushing attack. The Bills and the Ravens, in this case the Bills, are top 5 this year in zone rushing efficiency, yards per carry on zone running, yards overall in zone rushing. I love how they utilize these blockers on the outside and inline blockers in terms of Dawson Knox with the zone rushing attack. I love how they utilize Mac Hollins, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Murray Cooper here and there on the edges to block 4 guys like James Cook and Ty Johnson, maybe some zone reads for Josh Allen. So continue to utilize that. Don't do boring runs up the middle with James Cook and Ty Johnson. Get to the outside. That's James Cook's best attribute. Once he gets in the open field, he's gone. So bounce it to the outside, go tackle wrap sometimes, off tackle, utilize your very, very, very excellent and efficient zone rushing attack because you're not going to be able to run straight up the middle on these guys like Michael Pierce and Travis Jones are each 340 pounds respectively. And on the edge, Odafe Owe, Kyle Van Noy, David Ajabo, they're all pretty good enough pass rushers, but like they don't provide the Ravens much in terms of like run stuffing ability. So I'd say get on the edges as much as possible and utilize those outside edges blocking, especially with Mac Hollins, Khalil Shakir, maybe in line with some Dawson Knox. Let's go through the screen game as well. I think Josh Allen will have to get the ball out of his hands quickly and efficiently, and Ty Johnson and Khalil Shakir absolute money and deadly on those screens. But yeah, continue to use your zone rushing attack with some Josh Allen runs and some James Cook and Ty Johnson bouncing it to the outside, stuff like that. Don't get away from your game plan. Like just because it didn't work last time doesn't mean it can't work again. So find creative ways to get Curtis Samuel the ball. This is a very straightforward, easy blanket statement. Like get Curtis Samuel the ball. Okay, it isn't a big deal. Easier said than done. But Curtis Samuel for a majority of the season was dead silent. Radio silent. But last week against the Broncos, he had 68 yards and a touchdown, and that touchdown came in the fourth quarter, totally sealed any quote-unquote momentum the Broncos had, and they didn't have any momentum, but any like comeback effort totally vaporized with Curtis Samuel getting in the end zone. And I feel like Curtis Samuel, yes, in the playoffs total going forward, but let's worry about this game first, getting past the Ravens. In this game specifically, if there is an X factor, if there is a key for the Bills offense, I think Curtis Samuel is that offense. I would love to see him start stretching the field and see him and Josh Allen getting on the same page in terms of 2 or 3 deep shots, at least 1 or 2, give or take. But I want them to find ways to get Curtis Samuel the ball, whether that's in the middle of the field, getting him in space and expecting him to work after the catch, whether that is screens with Curtis Samuel and having good blocking set up, whether that is jet sweeps or true handoffs for Curtis Samuel. I truly do believe that Curtis Samuel is an X factor, playoffs as a whole, but especially this game against the Ravens, because they're not really planning for him. They're planning for Keon Coleman. They're planning for Amari Cooper. They're planning for Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, all the running backs. Don't read with Josh Allen and his passing, obviously. But if you can get Curtis Samuel going, that's another element of your game that they have to respect. Maybe getting going on a few screens. I would love to see, don't make it overly complicated. Get some creative handoffs and jet sweeps with him going. Find any way you can to get him the ball, because I truly do believe that Curtis Samuel is as big as an X factor as anyone in this game, because it just causes them to respect another weapon, if you will. And then another straightforward statement, pick on Nate Wiggins with Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper. Last week going in the game, I knew that it was going to be a really tough matchup with Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper, because it didn't favor out. Wasn't a matchup that favored true X receivers in Coleman and Cooper, because Pat Surtain is, in my opinion, the best corner in the league. And then Riley Moss isn't too bad himself. So I knew they weren't going to have any production, which granted they didn't. But this game right here, I think they can have huge, huge games. Whichever one is on Nate Wiggins, pick on Nate Wiggins down the field. They're both, Coleman and Cooper respectively, are both true X receivers that can really separate really nicely down the field. Maybe not Coleman, he still has to work on it, but Cooper can separate at a very high level still, even though he's 30 years old, going on 31 next year. So, in my opinion, you got to pick on Nate Wiggins. I know that Nate Wiggins had a pick six against the Pittsburgh Steelers last Saturday night, but give me a break. That's Russell Wilson in the slow and sluggish Steelers offense. That's their only weapon is George Pickens, and he complains all the time anyway. So, get Coleman and Cooper the ball downfield. Have them separate one-on-one against Nate Wiggins. And if you have that matchup, take it. I know Josh Allen has been pressing the ball downfield, and he's not gun shy to go downfield. He goes to his check down a lot. This is a game where if you see Coleman and or Cooper match up against Nate Wiggins, a rookie in Nate Wiggins who's 5'11", but he's only 180 pounds. So Coleman and Cooper, especially Coleman, can just out-muscle him downfield. So if it's there, take it. I'm not saying force it, but if there's separation there, if there's one-on-one matchups to be had against Nate Wiggins, take it. Because other than that, their secondary is really good. Marlon Humphrey, you're not throwing on him. Brandon Stevens, pretty good as well. Their safeties and Kyle Hamilton, forget it. Brandon Stevens and then Marcus Williams, their reserve guy, forget it. So, yeah. And then the linebackers, Dalton Kincaid, and other than screens, I don't see Khalil Shakir doing much either. So if you want to attack downfield with Coleman and Cooper, you can do it against Nate Wiggins. By all means, take those matchups. So, yeah. My 3 keys for the Bills defense. This is easier said than done, right, guys? Everyone's been talking about this. But my statement is get creative with how you defend Derrick Henry. What I mean by that is don't just sit there and have Derrick Henry come at you the whole time and be like, whoa, there's nothing we can do. There is. You can load the box more. Present Derrick Henry and the Ravens offensive line with heavier boxes, 4-man boxes, 5-man boxes. And the most important nugget I have here, run more than occasionally 3 linebacker sets. And I do not tell me that because it didn't work last time in week 4 that we shouldn't do it again. Let me paint a picture for you guys. Go back to week 4. The 3 linebackers in those sets that were on the field with Dorian Williams. Okay, I like him. But then the other 2 were Balin Spector and Nicholas Morrow. It makes a world of difference. I don't think it was a strategic thing. I don't think it was anything McDermott and W. Babbage did wrong last time to have it not work. I truly think it was personnel. Week 4, it's the 3 linebackers are Dorian Williams, Balin Spector, and Nicholas Morrow. And then now it's Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, and Dorian Williams. You see the personnel difference there? It's miles better now. And while we're on the subject of players that weren't there last time on defense, first of all, we didn't have Amari Cooper yet, even though Cooper doesn't really touch the ball much in games. He makes them respect his down the field ability with man coverage, opens up underneath stuff with underneath weapons like Knox, Kincaid, Shakir, running backs, all that fun stuff. But we didn't have Taron Johnson. We didn't have Terrell Bernard. Obviously, no Matt Milano. Obviously, like I just stated and explained, no Amari Cooper guy was still in the Browns, probably dying. Not literally, but figuratively, you know what I mean. And then Taylor Rapp got injured in the first quarter, and Cole Bishop got worked for the rest of the game. He didn't do very well at all. He's kind of garbage. So the personnel is different. Just because last time it didn't work, do not go away from creative ways to defend Derrick Henry. Use 3 linebacker sets. Be physical. We need physical tacklers. We cannot miss tackles. I love Matt Milano, but he misses a lot of tackles. Way too many for my liking. Really, the only guys that don't miss tackles consistently, like are good, consistent tacklers in this team, are Terrell Bernard and Christian Benford. Yeah, I mean, I'll reiterate again. 3 linebackers last time, week 4 against the Ravens, were Dorian Williams, Balin Spector, and Nicholas Morrow. Nicholas Morrow's not on the team anymore, and now it's Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, and Dorian Williams. And Taron Johnson can even buzz down near the line of scrimmage as well. So use creative 3 linebacker sets. Yeah. Put a spy on Lamar Jackson. I know the Bills don't really like spying QBs, but this is like a different cat here. This is a different breed in terms of Lamar Jackson, in terms of like how you have to defend him and how slippery he is, and all that. 3 cannon, putting a spy, if you don't know, on a QB. Lamar Jackson, obviously in this case, means 1 linebacker or 1 player on defense, usually linebacker, give or take, whatever. Spies the QB, so they watch the QB's eyes. If they're about to run, they shoot the gap and hopefully get them down the ground. If they're about to pass, they blitz. A spy basically means what the word basically entails. They spy the QB the whole time. Wherever they go, the defender goes. And I have 3 candidates to do this. All 3 of these guys are great in pass coverage, great tacklers, and very physical. Matt Milano. I finally saw some really, really encouraging signs of the old Matt Milano last week against the Broncos. He got credited with a sack. Terrell Bernard or Taron Johnson. So my 3 candidates to spy Lamar Jackson are Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, and Taron Johnson, if you buzz him down as a pseudo linebacker. If it were up to me, I would put Matt Milano as the spy to Lamar Jackson. If I was Bobby Babich, I would tell Matt Milano, do not let Lamar Jackson get out of that pocket. Do not let Lamar Jackson take those open, free rushing lanes. You stick on him like glue the whole entire time. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to work, but maybe it can at least slow him down. Again, maybe you don't want to use Matt Milano, but I want to use Matt Milano in this role specifically because last week, some really encouraging stuff with like credit with a sack and how hungry he was against the blitz and how, he flew around the field. So I would put Matt Milano on as the spy against Lamar Jackson, just because of Lamar's playing style. And honestly, I think Bobby Babich will want to do that as well. Those are 3 cans I came up with, but if we're up to me, Matt Milano. Now, this is a very blanket statement. I'm so sick of talking about this. The defensive line has got to step up. There is no more excuses. Last week against the Broncos, it was okay. It finally dialed up in the 4th quarter, but that was when we already had the game well in hand. Curtis Samuel, game-sealing touchdown, all that. Von Miller got quite a few pressures this week, 3 or 4, I think it was, in the QB's face. But 1, he's going up against his old team, and 2, it was kind of garbage time in the 4th quarter. Whatever nonsense. This has to show up. Greg Rousseau, I'm not worried about. 2 guys that I'm keying in on. Von Miller off the edge has to be special, and Ed Oliver on the interior. God forbid he ever does anything meaningful in a playoff game, but he has to be special or somewhere close to it. Enough of this nonsense. Well, they didn't show up this day. Well, this. This is going to be the Achilles heel if the Bills lose this game to the Ravens, or really any game in the playoffs, Super Bowl, hopefully. I'm done. And I've come to the realization that, like, other than Rousseau, maybe these guys are just, like, average. Like, there's no stars. Maybe they just are who they are. Like, Greg Rousseau, I don't think is a true number 1 game record pass rusher. I think it would be a number 2 pass rusher on a lot of teams, but the Bills will have to pay him just because of the lack of pass rush. But Ed Oliver, very underwhelming year. Von Miller, we just had to accept at this point. He's a washed veteran. He's headed towards a post-June 1st cut, and he's probably going to retire. DeJuan Smoot, he's okay as a rotational guy, but, like, it's nothing more than a 4th or 5th pass rusher, give or take. And then A.J. Epineza, like, what an underwhelming year for him. Like, he barely gets pressure. Like, he gets some pressure, but a lot of these guys get some pressure, but they gotta like finish the sack. So I'm looking at Von Miller off the edge. I'm looking at Oliver up front. And Daquan Jones, don't even get me started on him. He just looks so bad out there. And like, this is why I'm advocating for the Bills to draft defensive line, preferably defensive tackles like Derek Harmon from Oregon or Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. I'm so, like, other than Oliver and Dwayne Carter, who are youth, obviously, I'm so sick of these washed up veterans, like, for depth, like Jordan Phillips, Quentin Jefferson, like, and Austin Johnson. Get out of here with that. Daquan Jones, wrong side of 30. Like, replenish with youth, specifically in this interior defense line. I'm so sick of these, like, high-end rotational guys playing a good majority of snaps being, like, washed up veterans. It's about to take it seriously. You need to trade for a superstar pass rusher, Brandon Bean, like Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. I know I'm getting ahead of offseason conversations here, but there's no excuses anymore. Every playoff loss has been because of this. I was about to sorry. Let me slow down. Every playoff loss has been because of the stupid goddamn pass rush, and I'm sick of talking about it. So wake up and do what you're supposed to. Players of game prediction. I'm going to ride with the hot hand here of offensive player of the game prediction, in my opinion, will be Curtis Samuel, according to me, according to the Round the Slice prediction. I think the X Factor key role will continue for Curtis Samuel. I think he's a big X Factor that the Ravens aren't prepared for, and find easy button throws to get him the ball, find him easy ways to give him the ball in space, screens, jet sweeps, true handoffs, utilize his separation, burning a bit speed downfield. So I'm riding the hot hand key X Factor of Curtis Samuel, and then my official defense player of the game prediction, I'm going to go with Matt Milano. I think he'll keep Lamar Jackson somewhat hemmed in. Obviously, Lamar Jackson won't get his rushing yards, but as the spot, like I said, there were 3 candidates for the spot in Lamar Jackson. Let's see, Terrell Bernard, maybe Dorian Williams too, Taron Johnson, but definitely Matt Milano. I would use Matt Milano. I think he'll be crucial in that role because he's done it before, and he's very used to doing like delayed blitzes as well and disguised blitzes. And while we're on the topic of getting creative with defense against Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, while we're on the topic, I really am encouraged by what I saw from I'm encouraged by what I saw from Matt Milano last week against the Broncos. So I think Matt Milano. So Curtis Samuel, offensive player of the game prediction. Matt Milano, the spy thing, and just delayed blitzes and disguise coverages and whatever. Matt Milano's my defense player of the game predictions. Now, I have 4 underdog fantasy player props for you, and then a 5th prediction more generalized. Give me Josh Allen over. So I'm going to group these together because I think both QBs will use their legs quite a bit. I think both QBs will want to have 10 to 12 rushing attempts at least each. So give me Josh Allen over 45.5 rushing yards on underdog, and give me Lamar Jackson over 52.5 rushing yards. I think Matt Milano will do a decent job. I don't think he'll do awesome and stop Lamar Jackson, but maybe he can slow him down. But I think these QBs will be on the move a lot of design runs, a lot of scrambles. So Josh Allen over 45.5 rushing yards, Lamar Jackson over 52.5 rushing yards. And then give me Mark Andrews over 3.5 receptions. Again, I'm not going to see any Zay Flowers in my opinion. So they will use a lot of exotic personnels. Like they'll use Pat Ricard as a blocking fullback and to chip and wham on Oliver quite a bit. They'll use 3 tight ends with Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kohler, especially Charlie Kohler as that blocking guy. And I'm not really worried about Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar. I think Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas can handle them pretty easily, but I am kind of worried about Mark Andrews. So I think they're going to find easy ways to give him the ball. So give me Mark Andrews easily over 3.5 receptions. And then lastly, for the Bills, give me Amari Cooper over 22.5 rushing yards. When I looked at underdog yesterday, prepping for the show and getting my notes together, I was like, wow, that's a really low number. And then I went back and I'm like, I guess not, because Amari Cooper hasn't really had the production since he landed in Buffalo, maybe 1 or 2 games here and there, give or take. But I think this is a very favorable matchup for him against rookie Nate Wiggins, so they can take advantage. So give me quite easily, Amari Cooper over 22.5 receiving yards. And then my last more generalized prediction, I think Bills force at least 1 interception on Lamar Jackson, because between the delayed blitzes they're going to bring, the disguised coverages they're going to bring, Matt Milano being a spy on Lamar Jackson, I think they'll use Matt Milano delayed blitzes quite a bit this game. I really want them to. And I feel like if you can hold Derrick Henry to less than 100 yards and one or less rushing touchdowns, then you feel pretty good about winning the game in the end. But what you can't do is Derrick Henry run all over you. If you can keep Derrick Henry somewhat hemmed in and make Lamar Jackson a drop back passer the entire game, I think it becomes much easier because Lamar, the game script, they don't want to be a drop back passer. And the game script, speaking of the Bills rushing attack, it got game scripted out last time, guys, week 4 against the Ravens. What I meant by that is the game script was not favorable at all because we couldn't lean on our excellent zone rushing attack at all, bottom line, really, because we were down, went 7-0, very first play of the game. Derrick Henry breaks off an 80-yard run, and it snowballed from there, and we ended up losing 35-10. So hopefully we have a different game script this time. So, but make Lamar in a drop back passing offense, and I think they get one interception on him just because of the pressure they'll bring with Taron Johnson, some DBs, Matt Milano being the spy on him, all that. And then I have this being fireworks. I think Bills win the game 41-35. Doesn't matter how good your defense is. The Bills will score 35 to 40 points every damn game. Playoffs, regular season, preseason, doesn't matter. Maybe not preseason, but so my final prediction is Bills win the game 41-35. That's 76 combined points. What? Like smash the over. I think the over-under is like 55.5 for the Vegas line right now. I don't know. I don't get into that. But I think that's what it is. I would smash the over on that. So I think Bills win the game in an absolute classic, absolute shootout, 41-35. I can't handle guys losing this again. I can't handle another year waiting. I can't handle to continually chase this thing and be like, well, we lost. Defensive line didn't do anything. We had some drops in offense. Oh, well. Like, no. Like, we've lost first it was the Chiefs, couldn't get past that. Then it was the Bengals, couldn't get past that. And now it's going to be the Ravens. Like, this can't keep happening where every new AFC team we lose to. Like, none of that. Can't be happening. So I have the Bills winning 41-35. Now a couple last like fun housekeeping things. I just have one projected practice squad elevation for the Bills, and this is kind of a cool, neat one. Obviously, Frank Gore's son. I think Frank Gore Jr. will be elevated from the practice squad. He'll probably play like 0 snaps, special teams only. He is quite undersized and slow and not athletic, but the story's there with Frank Gore's son. So Frank Gore Jr. because of no Ray Davis. I could also see them giving Sledge some more snaps. But yeah, projecting 5 inactive players versus the Ravens. You have to have at least 5. This one's a gimme. QB Mike White, but he will be the third emergency QB. So RB Ray Darius, I just don't think he clears concussion protocol in time. Offensive tackle Ryan Vandermark. I personally don't get it, but they love Tyler Grable's that swing tackle role. I guess it's because he can play both left tackle and right tackle, and Ryan Vandermark can really only play left tackle. Defensive tackle Dwayne Carter. As much as I disagree with it, he struggled since coming back from wrist surgery, coming off of IR. They like the experience more, especially in the playoffs. Quentin Jefferson, Jordan Phillips, Austin Johnson. I personally have Jordan Phillips or Quentin Jefferson inactive, but predictably they'll do Dwayne Carter. And then corner Kyrie Lim. It's very cut and dry with him. He's only active if he's starting. If he's not starting, he's not inactive. And as a 3rd/4th outside corner, you have got to play special teams in that depth role. And Jamarcus Ingram, special teams stand out, fill in anywhere in the secondary. And Kyrie Lim doesn't play a single lick of special teams. So it's really unfortunate, but I think it's headed for a divorce for all parties here in the offseason, and they'll find a new home for him. Anyway, that is my official Bills-Ravens game preview. Once again, I have the Buffalo Bills beating the Baltimore Ravens 41-35 and playing either the Houston Texans or Kansas City Chiefs, whoever wins tomorrow, being Saturday, in the AFC Championship game. Once again, I apologize for the last month or so being inactive on this podcast channel, but again, with the holidays, pretty busy, Christmas, New Year's, all that fun stuff, and then higher quality editing. I was working on improving my editing skills, getting more video quality, getting more high-end visuals and for you guys. And I have a lot of plans for 2025. Obviously, I'm going to try to make this podcast the Around the Slice flagship podcast the best it can be, but I want to bring back the Around the Slice fantasy football show. I only did a couple episodes all the way back in July in the summer that I kind of forgot about, I guess you could say. But I want to bring it back, especially with NFL for free agency coming up. How did the movement of the running backs, QBs, top wide receivers change the landscape of fantasy football? I'm a fantasy football nerd. I love it so much. So I'm bringing that back. A lot going on for 2025. Once again, I have the Buffalo Bills beating the Baltimore Ravens, an absolute classic shootout, 41-35, duel of two elite MVP candidates in the divisional round. I almost forgot my plugs here, my promotional stuff, just because I haven't been here a while. But you can follow me personally on Twitter at @aweingarten13. I tweet about other playoff games on occasion as well. You can follow the show on Twitter at Around Slice. And of course, as always, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcast. Whatever your platform you like to pod, more than likely, 99% sure we're on there. So yeah, anyways, guys, I will see you on today's Friday. I will see you on Monday, January 20th for a 20th or 21st, because I might be kind of busy Monday. But I will see you early next week is my point for hopefully an upbeat, positive episode. Fingers crossed. Anyways, see you guys then. Enjoy the playoffs. Enjoy these moments. Enjoy that the Bills are even here. So, yeah. See you next time. Thank you for tuning in to my return episode. I'll see you next time. Bye.